Welcome, Power Learners! Today we're going to be doing a Be a Scientist experiment with vinegar. What is a Be a Scientist experiment? So basically, in this type of experiment, I'm going to give you like a prompt or a topic, like a question that you're going to have to conduct an experiment based on. So today we're going to be doing something on vinegar, like I said before. So our question today is, what substances are affected by vinegar, which is acetic acid? So it's basically asking what type of materials will change when you put vinegar with it. So if you haven't already, before you start the experiment, watch our video called Make an Egg Bounce, because it'll give you a little background on what type of objects will dissolve in vinegar. So I already did an experiment based on this prompt, and so I'm going to tell you what I did so you have a better understanding of what you have to do. So the materials that you're going to need and what I used was like vinegar, obviously, like containers or like cups, and 4 to 5 materials that you choose to pick, like to test. So my materials were chalk, seashell, candle wax, and an almond. So you can think about the Make an Egg Bounce experiment, what you already know about vinegar, and pick 4 items that you want to test by putting in vinegar. So it's better if you don't use the same ones as I do, so you actually get new results instead of just seeing whatever I've done. So the procedure for the experiment is to take your containers, which should be like, you should have enough for the number of your test materials to be in separate containers and areas. Fill them with vinegar and then seal the container shut to prevent the vinegar from drying. Then you're supposed to put the materials in the cups. For a few days, you should check on your items every day and record your observations. And then after you've done that, you should come up with a conclusion based on your data. So now we're going to start looking at my experiment. Wait, actually no, sorry. We're going to be forming a hypothesis, which is an educated guess. So when you form a hypothesis, you need to think about what you know about the material, what you know about vinegar, and then assume or come up with an educated guess on what you think is going to happen when you put them together. So do that right now, and then we're going to talk about my the hypothesis that I came up with. So my hypothesis for chalk is that it'll dissolve. For seashell, that it will dissolve, and then I'm saying that the candle wax will stay the same and that the almond will dissolve. So a lot of these things are based on what we know about the materials and what I think will happen when I put them together. So the reason if you want to be a little more accurate when you're forming your hypothesis, you could always look up what chalk, or not chalk, whatever your materials are, you can look up what they're made of and then come up with a hypothesis, or you can just look at it and think about and then come up with your hypothesis. What I did was, for a few of them I looked at what they're made of, and then for the other ones I just kind of guessed what was going to happen. So this is my chalk for 4 days after putting it inside the containers. So this is my experiment again. So again, you don't want to do the same thing as I do so you can get new results. So day 1 is as soon as it was placed in the vinegar. As you can see, it automatically broke up a little bit. And then day 2, the chalk basically turned the rest of the vinegar yellow, and then it slowly got this one doesn't look smaller, but the picture itself is a bit bigger. And the reason it looks a bit pinkish is just that it was used with taken with another phone, and so the lighting was a little different, but it really was still the same color. And then it became smaller. The chalk became much smaller the 4th day. So this is So I said that it was going to dissolve. My hypothesis was that it was going to dissolve, and I was right because at least half of it dissolved. So this is the seashell. In this first picture, you can see the seashell. The second day, you don't see the seashell anymore, and you can't see it for the third and fourth day. So I said I was going to dissolve, and I was right. It dissolved even after the first day. For the almond, I said it was going to dissolve, but as you can see, you can see the almond in every picture, so I was wrong. Over here, it actually looks slightly like it got bigger. So here is the first picture, and then here, this is the almond in the second, this is the almond in the third, and this is the almond in the fourth. So it kind of stayed the same. I mean, it looks a bit bigger, but it probably didn't get bigger, but it looks around the same. So now to our last item, wax. So this one was a very surprising one for me. I thought that the wax was going to stay the same, but the container around the wax actually turned blue. So as you can see in this picture, it's like very blue, and it stays this color for the 4 days. And one thing that you're going to learn is that there are many signs of a chemical reaction, and one of those signs is color change. So because it turned blue, which is not the color of the wax, we can kind of think that the wax and the vinegar caused a chemical reaction. A chemical reaction is when two substances are put together and then a new one is formed. So that's very interesting. So one thing that scientists do after performing an experiment is seeing how they can improve their results and really prove that their hypothesis was either wrong or right. And so a few things that I thought of how we can improve our results from this time was to repeat the experiment. And the reason why you should always repeat your experiment is because there might have been some outside factor or something that caused your materials to act in a certain way. So if you repeat the experiment and the results are the same, then you can know that your result is accurate. But then in the next experiment, what can we do to improve our results? So one thing that I wanted to do next time was to separate the test samples more, because when I was looking at the materials, like the wax turned blue, and then I put the almond next to it, right in like the container next to it. If you saw the procedure slide, you can see the little container that I use, and all the little boxes are very close to each other. And I didn't spread them out, which was not a good idea, because a little bit of the blue water went into the at least I think that it went into the almond container, so it made the almond container look a bit bluer. But what if the almond actually caused the vinegar to turn blue? Then we don't know because of the closeness of it. So next time I would separate them more. And also to put them, maybe something would have happened if we kept it for a longer time. So that's always something that you could do to improve your results. So now let's talk about our conclusion. For a more advanced level, you may have to do some research when coming up with one. So you should do this with a parent because you're going to be looking stuff online. And you don't even have to do research if you don't want to, but if you want to have a more advanced conclusion, you should do some research. So some tips are basically what you have to do for researching is to look up what the composition of your test material is. The composition would be what the material is made up of. So that, let's say you have two materials that have like similar things in them, and then they act in a certain way with your vinegar. Then you can kind of say, okay, so because both these materials contain this and this, maybe that's why they both act similarly with the vinegar. So calcium carbonate is something we talk about in the video Make an Egg Bounce. That's what the eggshell was made up of, and the vinegar made it dissolve. So calcium carbonate is like if your material contains calcium carbonate, you can say and it dissolves, you could say because it contains calcium carbonate, it dissolved, which I do talk about actually in my conclusions. So my conclusion is that So for the chalk and the seashell, my hypothesis is supported. That means that I was right with my hypothesis. And then I'm saying that it dissolved because it contains calcium carbonate. Um, then for the candle wax, my hypothesis is rejected because I said it was going to stay the same, but it didn't. So the candle wax turned really the vinegar blue because of a chemical reaction, because color change is an indicator of a chemical reaction. So an indicator means that if this happens, then you can kind of think, okay, it's a chemical reaction occurred. Unless, of course, if you're taking, like, we can't say that a chemical reaction occurred with our chalk because, like, it turns yellow, because the chalk itself is yellow, so we know that it's really just that's making the vinegar turn yellow. But because the wax is white and the vinegar is clear, then we can tell that something happened for it to turn blue. And then for the almond, my hypothesis was rejected. I said that it was going to dissolve, but it stayed the same because and my thought is maybe because there's nothing in it that reacts with vinegar. So this is my conclusion. If you, after you're done with your experiment, if you want to share your conclusion, just comment down below. I'd love to hear your conclusions for your experiment.